So as we discussed yesterday, today we are going to see Elastic Compute Cloud. This is one of the important services of Amazon. This forms the backbone of most of the other services on Amazon. Every server, every service that you run internally somehow ties to EC2. That is nothing but Elastic Compute Cloud. Amazon itself runs quite a lot of workloads in EC2. So in other words, EC2 is the backbone for AWS, you can say. So in this session, I'm going to briefly take you about what is EC2, what are your instance types, when you can use your EC2, and later, either today, if you have the time in the session, or later tomorrow, we will start doing hands-on demos in EC2. I'll show you how to set up an EC2 instance, how to start it, how to change the instance types. That is, in other words, if you want to move from a smaller sized instance to a bigger sized instance, how do you do that? And what are the things that you need to know before increasing the instance sizes and those kind of things. So EC2 forms the compute group of services that Amazon offers, and in this session we start focusing all our energies on EC2. Later, once we are comfortable with starting a few instances, then we will think about scaling them automatically using the auto scaling service. So auto scaling is a very good one. Once we finish EC2, we will look into that in detail. So this is a very rough features of EC2. Each of them is tied to a feature that you can see it in the console. It is completely controlled. What it means is you can decide what is the size you want. You can decide how much hours it needs to be run, and you can also decide who can access it. So everything about EC2 is fully controlled and optimized. Like in a conventional data center, most of the times people give you the server and you start using the server, or they tell you that I cannot have this CPU architecture available for you because we don't have that in our data center. Or sometimes we'll say that we have been running it a long time on this hardware only, we cannot migrate it to a bigger sized hardware because we don't have it there. I have heard all these kind of excuses from people who are provisioning machines in the data center. But when it comes to EC2, you can change a lot of things very flexibly. That is what the next part is. It is all from the console you can do it, or through an API based access you can do it. And web scale, that ties very much with the auto scaling part. So for now, let us just say that EC2, you can do a lot of things. For example, go from 10 servers to 10,000 servers by scaling your application into a proper scaling configuration or a scaling plan that you set up. Say, for example, my CPU is growing, keep on adding instances, or when my memory is growing, keep on adding instances. And when my CPU comes down, reduce instances. A very simple policy will look like that. A complicated policy will be like, I want to see whether my CPU is increasing and also my memory is increasing. You combine two or three things, or you try to say that what is the number of orders I am getting in my order management system. If the order is increasing, then I want to increase more systems. Think of a Flipkart or an Amazon.com shopping website. So in that case, instead of measuring my CPU, I will try to measure my orders or response time for my orders. Yeah, like for example, I tried to log in about few minutes back and there was a terrible delay. And of course, I understand this is my own internet probably, or EC2, AWS was itself slow. So if I'm running Flipkart, what I will try to do is I will try to see what is my customer experiencing. Is my customer going to log in within 2 seconds, or I'm going to wait them for 20 seconds? If I'm going to make them wait for 20 seconds, they will probably go to Jabang or some other website which is not my own, and I will lose business. So in that case, I will measure my scaling capabilities by my login waiting time. So these are all some complicated rules that you can set up when you're trying to scale your application to many number of users. So that is all it talks about in Elastic. That is, you can scale from 0 to 100 and come back to 0 again. And we will talk, or we will do it hands-on, so we will understand why it is easy to start and inexpensive in the next few minutes. So basically, EC2 we have has a few concepts and fundamentals that you need to understand. EC2 resides in a particular region. If you remember, I kept on telling you S3 is regionless. You can put it in your nearest region, and S3 will be available elsewhere using the URL. But that is not the case when we are talking about EC2. If you start an EC2 instance in Mumbai region, I don't have an URL or any other way to access the server until I log into my Mumbai region. So EC2s are region specific, and you have a lot of regions spread across the world. So choose the region which is to optimize your latency and minimize the cost. What it means is, this is a very important thing, guys. The cost is quite often based on the region that you are from. Amazon started some of the services in Oregon and Virginia, that is East Coast and West Coast. So what happens is some of the EC2 instances are low cost when you're doing it here. But when you're doing it in India region or Mumbai, the cost is relatively higher. For example, let us say here it is $1. In India, it will be probably $2. It is not so drastic, but I'm just making a point that the cost is differs from region to region. So when you're choosing a region, you choose it carefully for minimizing latency, for minimizing cost, and also your regulatory compliance. There are sometimes you cannot run your workload in a different country if it is related to medical or pharma or insurance or government sectors or defense sectors. Sometimes in the contract itself they will say, I wanted to run my workload within my geographic boundaries. For example, we all might be familiar with the DARPA, which is the Defense Research Organization of America. They run their workload all in some of their workloads, not all of their workloads, some of them in AWS, and AWS created something called a government cloud for them. So that is about the regions. We already talked much into that, so let us move on. In each region, we have a concept called availability zones. That is, let us, if you take one particular region that is in this European London region, let us say, and within that you will have a minimum of 3 different data centers, and Amazon calls these data centers as availability zones. And depending upon the regions, you can have from 2 to 5 availability zones in a particular region. Once again, the instances within an availability zone give you a low latency network. That means that, let us say I am starting all my instances in availability zone 1, then all these 10 instances can talk to each other in a very low latency network. They are all interconnected within the availability zone. And you can talk from availability zone from A to B by using your network pairing or any other technologies in a low latency network. But when you are trying to jump from region to region, your latency increases a little bit. So when you are designing your architecture, when you are proposing to start an instance in a particular region, you need to see where is the customers are going to use it from, and then you need to choose the appropriate availability zone. So first you choose your region, and after choosing the region, you choose your availability zone. Then you come to choose the type of instance that you want to run inside now. So slowly we are building one on top of the other. Region is ready, availability zone is ready. Now somebody is asking you, what instance should I run there? So what are instances then? Instances are nothing but resizable compute capacity. We talked about this. CPU, memory, and networking also changes depending upon the instance that you are running. You can run as many you want or as few you want. Let us not spend time here. Let us go ahead and see what are the types of instances. Before that, I wanted to just show you this use case. Anybody is familiar with the American market will know that Dow Jones is their stock market in America. They use Amazon EC2 for a lot of products and testing, and they say that their product development has increased by at least 30% by using EC2 instances. The reason I put it here is, in the beginning of the class, sometimes people say that the financial institutions and pharma companies are reluctant to use cloud, but that is not always the case. There are slowly people coming on board. More and more financial institutions and pharma companies are coming there, and this use case by Dow Jones, which is a stock market itself, shows you that things are changing in the market. So again, this is another slide which explains to you that there are multiple variants of instance types. Some of them are combination of CPU and memory. Some of them are network capacity optimized. You can have different flavors of operating system and software. Remember, in the first few sessions, I started a Red Hat instance. And yesterday, when I wanted to use AWS CLI for accessing S3, I used an Amazon Linux instance. Like that, you can also use Windows instance or Ubuntu or whichever is your flavor available in the market. And EC2 is integrated by default into all of these services and many more. Let us talk more about these optimized instance types now. These are the general categories of instances that you see in the AWS console or service. So we start with the general purpose on the left hand side, that is all starting with the M series, let us say, and then you have this specialized instance at the bottom, that is T2, which does not fit into most of these categories because T2 is completely different. It is customized for burst capability. That is, you can have a T2 instance going from 0 to 80% of your CPU if you have the budget or CPU credits Amazon calls you. If you have the CPU credits, that then you can burst your capacity. That is why you can see the speedometer kind of a needle there, so that you can symbolically associate with the burst capabilities. Then you have the compute optimized. That means all the servers which are starting with the C series are having a high amount of CPU and optimized amount of memory. Whereas the next group that you have here is storage optimized and input output optimized. The D2 guy here is fully a storage optimized server, and if you are starting anything with an I2 instance, that means that you are talking about an input output optimized. That is, you can have a very high amount of input output happening through this server. Like that, you have GPU optimized G2 series and R3 and X4 series. If you go to Amazon instance types, you can see that each of them, how much CPU is there and how much memory is there for all these instances. And just going to show you what is this C4 means. How do I easily understand or remember this? So this is another a pictorial, text-based representation of the use cases that each of those families are used for. When somebody says, I want to run a simple database or a website, then you recommend them a general purpose server instance. If somebody says, I have a video encoding, remember I talked about video encoding and compute optimized, that is a lot of CPU cycles are required, then I should recommend them as C-based instance. If they are doing a lot of high memory databases and reports and all those kind of things, streaming also comes into this category. This is video encoding, that is converting from one format to another format. This is for streaming data from your database or your instances. So then you use an R3. Likewise, you have 3D machine learning and optimized. For each of them, you have a separate category of instance available. So this is the general naming convention Amazon usually follows. The first character, that is C or M or I, identifies what is the category of that instance, whether it is compute, memory or IO optimized. And next one, the number is the generation. Earlier we used to have C3, M3 and all those things. Now we have M4, C4, the CPU architecture or CPU generation that is we are talking about. So when you are talking about a large instance, it means 8 CPU, and when you are talking about here in the bottom, you see 2x large, that means it is having 16 CPU. When you are talking about 4x large, we are talking about 32 CPU there. So this is how the instances are named, and when somebody says that C4 2x large instance I want, they are talking about a compute optimized instance which is 4th generation and having about 16 CPUs. That is how you easily identify instance from its name. And each instance, I will show a demo for all of these things. Just try to remember some of the words and concepts that you see here, so that when you are seeing a demo, I can correlate and show you this is what we are talking about. Metadata, just as the word says, metadata is data about your instance. What is the instance type, whether it is running, whether it is stopped, what is the IP address, what is the DNS name, all those kind of information about the server will be stored inside the server itself. And there's another thing called user data. Like for example, you want to run some scripts at the beginning of your server itself. Then you can pass on this information using the user data option. We will see that in a short while. If somebody says you, I want to know what is the AMI ID, that is the Amazon Machine Image ID, or a host name of the server, or what is the instance type, then what you do is, if you're having access to that server, go to the server and open your browser and open this URL. You will find all this information about the server. If you're on a Linux instance, you use either the curl command or a get command from your terminal to get the same data. And all the data is text type. So what it means is, just going back to the previous slide, what it means is it can be used to configure or manage a running instance. Why I say that is, let us say I'm having a host name, very descriptive host name saying web server 01. So if I find the word web in my instance name, then I will start configuring my web technologies or HTML files on the server. If I have the host name saying DB server 01, then I will try to apply some fine tuning on top of that. So based on the metadata that is on my instance, I can run appropriate scripts when I'm doing a DevOps or a configuration management tool on top of it. So that is how metadata comes into picture, and how important it plays into when you're doing a DevOps style starting and stopping of instances. Now we talked about retrieving metadata. Let us see how we can retrieve user data. It is almost very similar to that. This is just talks about when you can run it and where you can do things. Just let me go ahead and see. There will be user data field will be there in your server where you can type this commands. So in every user data will have to start with this. This example is only for Linux users, and the next example is for Windows users. So user data is purely scripts. You don't have an option of doing configuring user data with the console. So in case if you want to run something, then you start with your hashbang prompt and say I'm going to run a shell script or a Perl script. Then you write your commands like this. So the text has to be changed here. This has to be Windows here. And even in Windows, we use PowerShell, and you start your PowerShell and end your PowerShell like this. And if you run these commands, it will run IIS and it will install the web management tools. So this is how you retrieve the user data. The same URL, this IP address is a PIPA IP address. That is what it is used to be called, 169.254, 169.254. It is a non-routable IP address. It cannot be reached from outside the instance. It can be reached only within the instance. And this URL is common in AWS. So this is for Linux guy. This is for Windows guys, and this is for Linux guys. You go to your browser, IE or Firefox, and do this. And if you're in Windows, you go to terminal and type curl blah blah blah. You will get the output like this. So instance lifecycle. This is a very good thing to remember. There is always a question here in the exam based on this. What happens when I start my instance? So you configure your instance by choosing the instance type, choosing the region, choosing the availability zone and network, and from the console you launch it. It goes to a pending state until it finishes all the checks, and once all the checks are completed, you will see the status as running. But in between these two states, anything could go wrong and it can go to a failed state. Let us look into that now. So before looking into the failed state, from running it can go into, like you are initiating a stop, it can go to a stopping state. You will see that in the console. I'll show you. And from once it is stopping, once it is stopped all the processes and services, just like any server you stop, it will try to shut down the services, it will try to remove the IP address, it will try to disable the EBS instances, and then once it finished all those processes, it will reach the stopped state. So once it is in the stopped state, it will go back to pending. That is, you can start another instance from there. So you cannot, I mean, yeah, you can start a stop, you can restart a stopped instance. But in case if you are going to do a reboot from running, it just enters into a rebooting state and comes back. This I have not even found time to see it, because Amazon reboots your instances almost instantaneously. It just blinks for a second in the console and you will see the running status again. In other words, if you do an uptime or a server uptime in your console, you will find that timer has reset, but you will not change the setting going into rebooting and coming back. But it does happen on the background. Then we talk about termination. That is, you are completely shutting down your server and closing and stopping all services. So from running, it moves to shutdown, and from shutdown, it moves to terminated. So you can also go from stopped state to a terminated state from the console. So this is the demo I wanted to show now, starting from the region, AZ, availability type. Let us go one by one now. So once again, this is my EC2 console. I have created a shortcut in the top. If I click on this also, it will take me to the same console. And what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my region. As usual, I prefer the Mumbai region because the latency will be lesser for me, because I am working from India. So Mumbai region is the best option for me. So before going ahead, is everybody so far good? Let us go ahead and do the demo. Is there anything that you wanted to ask me before we go ahead and start the demo? All good? Can you type that? All good? Okay, one person at least feels good. Okay, this is my console. Now I have chosen my region. Next is I need to start my instances. So the easiest thing to start an instance is click on this option. You can also click on this one. It will also bring you back to the same page where you will have the launch instance button at the very top. Like you have, this is the EC2 dashboard instance setting on the dashboard. So let me go ahead and click on launch instances. It is going to take me a page where it asks me to choose what operating system I want to run. In other words, what image, pre-configured image I want to run. Please choose that. That is what it's saying. I have plenty of options here. So these are all the default options Amazon gives you. Quick start, because most of the people use one of them. You have Amazon Linux, you have Red Hat, you have SUSE Linux. If you scroll down a little bit more, you will find the Windows operating system as well. You have Windows here and all these flavors. I'm going to choose the black color box, that is free tier. That is because for the demo we don't need a very powerful server, so we can choose the free tier only. If you are interested to see what difference it will make, go ahead and start it. But absolutely there is no difference in the start time or run time from a 2 CPU machine to a 20 CPU machine. So these are the options I have. We'll talk about the CPUs a little later. We'll focus on operating systems now. So these are, if I have created my own machine images, that is, remember in EBS I talked to you about creating machine images. So if I have created anything there, it will be visible here. Later in the session, we will configure our machine, customize it, and create our own machine image. For now, I don't have anything, so this page is empty. If I click on this one, it will show me the same list of machine images here that we saw in the previous page. People trying to sell a lot of things. Let us say, for example, I want to start a WordPress. Let me type WordPress here. You have a search box. You go ahead and type what software that you want to run. You will most probably be able to find it if it is in the Amazon marketplace. See, for example, Bitnami is another company which sells pre-customized WordPress images or software running. So I can select this option and run a WordPress website readily. So I'm just showing you a demo. Let us start a plain server for now. This is community AMI. That is again, these are in marketplace and community AMI. The difference is sometimes there will be charges available associated with some of the images in the marketplace. So you need to be careful about what software you're choosing from here and starting. And community AMI is like you and me, people have created and customized images and uploaded it for other general public to use it. For example, this image is provided by Red Dot Corporation itself. They are asking people to use it and run it for free so that they can buy a support license from Red Hat. So you will like that a lot of instances will be there. Once again, you use the powerful search option that is at the top and search and find out what you want. You will be surprised that most common use cases already have a community AMI here and you use them. Or if you are feeling bored, you can narrow down your searches by using the options that you are having here. So let me go back to quick start, which I prefer most because all the details that I wanted here, I always prefer Red Hat Linux, and I'm going to start my Red Hat Linux here. Select. This is the instance types and generations that we have talked about. Remember, the C4 is the latest generation. I told you if I choose all generations, this already lengthy option will go even more. It is not to do that, but you can go ahead and start previous generation images by choosing this option. But it is always good to stay with the current generation ones. Again, you can filter your instance types by, remember, I talked to you about the C series, R series, and also the D and I series. So if you are sure that you want a video encoding machine, go to compute optimized and you will see all the C series machines here. You can choose any of them you want. For our demo, we will stick with general purpose and let us stick with free tier only if you don't want to have additional cost. So I'm going to select this option. It is pre-selected. If you want to select something else, just go ahead and click on that one. So this is wait a second. This is the CPUs that you get. That is one CPU, two CPU. Let me show you the biggest one. I think it is X series is the biggest one. It has about 32 CPU and 1 terabyte of RAM. If I can find it, X series. Okay, 128. This is the biggest instance that you can. Is it refreshed? Okay, let me wait for it to refresh. Okay, here you can see it is memory optimized X132 large, and it has about 128 CPUs and about 2 terabytes, that is 1952 gigabytes of RAM, guys. That is huge in my opinion, and it is EBS optimized, and it is having a 20-bit high bandwidth network card configured with it. So this is the top I was reading about the CPUs, memory, and what type of storage it has, and whether it is EBS optimized or not, and network performance and IPv6 support. So from a simple 1 CPU 0.5 GB RAM, Amazon goes all the way high up to 2 terabytes of RAM. So that is quite a lot of flexibility in my opinion for a just credit card based purchase. You can start your X1 series also anytime if you want to see a bill shock. So next we are trying to configure our instance now. It is asking me how many instances I want. I'm going to say launch only one instance. We will come back to purchasing options. There are 4 different ways of purchasing Amazon instances. The cost is the different factor in each of them. We will look at it when we are trying to optimize our cost in EC2. For now, leave this option to not choose spot instances. Next is the network type. Remember, we chose the region here, and I told you that we need to choose our availability zone. So that is the option that we are going to choose now. I'm going to choose the default network for now. When we are taking in the network class, I will show you how to configure this network and how to configure your availability zones. As you can see that in my classes, slowly from default, I'm slowly customizing each and every option. So far, we were talking about the general buckets, then we showed about encryption, versioning and all those things. And I was starting a default instance. Now we are going to choose regions and availability zones based on what we want. The process of starting availability zone, region and EC2 instance is same throughout the regions. So here, let us say I'm going to choose the 1A region, and it says that I have this many IP addresses available in this region. That is, your subnets have a limited number of IP addresses. So when you're designing your subnet, you should think of the future growth and how many servers you want to start, and then design your subnet based on that. So we will talk in detail when you're designing your subnet. So for now, I'm going to say auto assign a public IP address so that I can connect to it using the IP address. So I'm going to keep this option as enabled. This is default. I'm going to make sure this is enabled. And remember IAM role, remember we created a role yesterday, I deleted it after that. So if you are creating a role, that role will come here. Let me add a role so that we can add some permissions. It is so quickly you can go ahead and add a role in Amazon. That's what I like about this. While it's trying to spin and fix it, we'll go ahead and see the other two options, shutdown behavior. So what happens when I click on shutdown from the console? Should it terminate or stop? These are two options I have. So if I click on terminate, and when I accidentally ask my server to stop also, all the data will be lost because I have chosen the terminate option here. So you need to be very careful on what option you are choosing. When you're running 10,000 servers and if your application is fault tolerant, you don't care about restarting a server or fixing a trouble, what I will do is I will start them as shutdown behavior as terminate, because my application has all the data elsewhere and I don't have to spend time fixing it. But if my application is running on only one server and I absolutely want it to have the data persistent in the same server, then I will not want to terminate it. I will choose the stop option. So depending upon your application only you will choose this, but it is good that you should remember that you have an option when it is called stateless and stateful applications. If your application is stateless, that means everything is stored, the cookie, cache, session data will be stored outside. To give you a real-time example, let us think of a Flipkart or Amazon. You're doing a shopping and all of a sudden the server is not reachable. If you refresh your page and if you're able to connect to the same page where you are with the same payment details and everything, that means your application is stateless. In other words, the server goes down, comes back, still the user does not face much difficulty. But if you are forced to re-log in to Flipkart and enter all your details and all your filters, that means your application is stateful, because the server had all the details and the server has taken down all the details along with it when it terminated. That is how the real world scenario is for stop and terminate. For now, let us click on stop. I'm going to go back here, create a role. Like yesterday, I'm just going to create an S3 access role for this server. Just going to click on this, click on S3 full access quickly. I'm going to click on next, EC2 S3 full access. What I'll do, yes. If it's finished creating, all you have to do is go to the other window and just, guys, are you seeing me? Yes, no? Go to meeting is complaining something. Hello? Okay, I have my role created and I'm going to go to the server. I'm going to click on this button. It will refresh and it should give me the role now. That's it. Now, enable termination protection means this terminate option will be disabled in my console also. So let us leave that as it is. I will show you how to activate it in another place. Monitoring, if you want to have additional monitoring setup on your server, you want to do that. Let us not do it now. When we are doing a monitoring class, let us do that. This is for running a dedicated instance. That means the entire instance is dedicated for you and you will pay an extra cost for that. Say for example you have a very critical business workload or a pharmaceutical workload and you want to share the data with anybody, then you will use this option. But if you are no problems sharing your data, sharing your instance, not your data, sharing your instance resources with some other customer, then you use this option. That is the default. So as it says very clearly, it warns you saying additional charges will apply for dedicated tenancy. That means because Amazon absolutely dedicates that instance hardware wise for you only. And it is asking me whether I want to assign my IP address. So I can assign any of the IP address within my subnet range here. I can auto assign it, or I can allow AWS to auto assign it or add my IP address myself. So remember the user data we talked about. When you click on advanced details here, this is where I am going to type in my user data. So as you can see here, you can specify what you want to type in here. Let us go ahead and do this. Sometimes I see this not working. Let us go ahead and try it anyway. Bin bash. Linux guys, shout out if I'm making any mistake here. I am assuming this is version 7 that I'm starting, so I'm typing systemctl enable httpd systemctl start httpd, and I'm going to create a demo page. HTML, welcome to EC2 demo. Oh. Once again, what I'm doing is I'm just outputting a small text into a file called index.html, and I'm putting that into this location because I know this location is where by default HTTPD starts, that is a web server starts and looks for files. So that is what I have done here. Let us see if this works. Let us go ahead and click on it. This is how you give user data to your server. That is nothing complicated I have done here. So it is asking me to add storage. By default, it takes a 10 GB disk, and if I have an additional volume created, if I want to add additional volume, I can go ahead, click on that and say add another disk. Remember we talked about adding EPS volumes. It is the same task. You can do it from here also when you are starting your server. So this we have seen it already, so I'll just remove that. And next, tags. As usual, I always like to give tags because it helps me in cleanup. And I'm going to choose my security group now. That is, in other words, who I want to give access to my server. So I already have a default security group, and I also have a launch. If you remember yesterday or day before yesterday, we created on 25th, it was created. So I'm just choosing that because I know I created an SSH access for all the IPs in the world to connect to my server. So you can have multiple ports configured, you can have other kind of ports, custom ports that you can open for your server, and you can do all that using the security group which is created under your VPC. So for now, let us use the default one and say give me SSH access, and I'm going to review all my configuration and see if I have to change anything. So here is my operating system that I'm choosing, 7.2 Red Hat Linux 7.2, and this is the CPU and the memory that I have chosen. That is the instance type, T2 type I've chosen, and it shows me the security group here and what are the ports that I have open, and here I have my instance details, that is my subnet and whether it is EPS optimized, whether I have done monitoring, and the shutdown behavior protection is, termination protection is no, and the shutdown behavior and all those details. If you see here, you don't see the text here. Amazon converts it into a very simple encrypted form, the script that you have inputted, and shows it like this in the console. But when you go to the server, you will be able to see the exact commands here. It converts it in such a way that it can send it to their servers without breaking their functionality, because in a script we quite often use special characters, and that special characters should not break any configuration they have, so they encrypt it into a different format and send it in alphanumeric text. So this is our interface, our default our 10 GB storage, and also our tags. You can go back and customize it anytime using the edit option that is always available on the right hand side that you see. You can see the edit storage, edit tags, and almost all the fields will have the edit option. It will take you back to the page where we were, or in the very top also you have all these options so that you can go back and change it anytime and come back. You will not lose any configuration. For example, if I go back to, say for example, tags, I can add another tag like a test. You will have all your configuration. I can go back to the view and jump directly to the last page. So I will not lose any configuration and go back and change anything and come back here anytime. So we have our new tag here. Let us go ahead and click on launch. Now is the finally important part. In EC2, you have to log in with SSH keys, whether it is Windows Server or Linux server. You need to launch it with an SSH key. Let us say I want to create a new key. I don't want to use an existing key. If your account is new, you will most probably will not have a key. So what you will do is Amazon will say create a new key pair. So I'm going to click on that now. So automatically Amazon creates a new key and asks me have a name so that you can save it somewhere. So I'm going to say EC2 demo for Mumbai. So I'm going to download my key pair. So I have got my PEM key ready and downloaded. I'm going to click on launch my instances now. So you get this launch state. Anybody wanted to say something?
Yeah, can we create this keys later on, or if you forgot or if you missed to create?
You cannot access your server if you have not started it with a key. It is not like you can attach a key later to a server. You cannot do that. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to assume Anand is happy with that answer.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yes.
Okay. So this is the launch status. It shows you your instances are launching. If you click on that, it will take you to the EC2 dashboard, and you will see the instance state here, which is great. Already it is running. We spent some time talking on other things. So we started this will be pending state initially, as I showed you in the lifecycle flowchart, and then it will change into a running state. So as you can see, it is still running some health checks internally, and it is always good to wait until the status comes as okay and then start your instance, access your instance for some further functionality. But ours is a demo instance, so we don't really have to wait until all the checks are completed. So we can go ahead and use this URL to connect to our server. So you can also use this public IP address also to connect to our server. So in case if you want to start, what I wanted to say is keys, I'm trying to find keys, yeah. In case you want to have your keys already created and ready when you're launching your instances, you can go here and create your keys anytime. Remember, I have two keys. One is EC2 demo Mumbai that we created just now, and this is the usual key that I always use, training admin key. And the key fingerprint is a lengthier text. This is just for an identifier for this name of the key. It is not the exact key itself. And if you have any key created outside EC2, you can import that key also here and start your instances with the same key. For example, you want to access all your servers in your corporate data center with a particular key, and you want to use the same key to access your EC2 instance also, then you import that key using this option and start your server with that key. Let us go back to instances now. And I'm just going to copy this one into my usual folder. Just one moment, guys. I'm just moving the key. I'm not doing any magic on the background. I'm just putting it into a different folder so I can have all the keys in one location. So what I basically do is I usually have a folder called keys, and I put all my keys in one location so that it is easier for me to access it or know that which key is for what. I mean, this is a best practice or a practice that I found helpful. It is not mandatory for you to follow the same way. I try to say which region and some descriptive text for the key. There is no limit on the key name because this is for Windows, treats the key name 255 characters you have. As long as it is descriptive and you can understand it, it's fine. Okay, I have the instance running. Let me go back to terminal, open a new tab, or not a new tab, I'm sorry. Go to new session, click on SSH. I'm going to my console to copy my host name. I'm typing in my host name, and for Amazon Linux Red Hat users, I know the server name is EC2. Let me not do this. Let it prompt for username. So I'm going to click on advanced settings, use my private key. People, you might be familiar with PuTTY. This is just another terminal I use for PuTTY. It is the same way. You just put in your host name and put in your okay, let me put that question another way. Anybody not familiar with PuTTY here? Madhuri, are you familiar with using PuTTY? And I think Sujan, you are also a Windows person, right? Have you used PuTTY before? I'm sorry, I forgot. Somebody else was Windows. Okay. Okay, after this, I will just download a PuTTY again. I mean, I have PuTTY locally. I will show you where to download it and use it. So, in this terminal, let me continue here. Let us not break the flow here. I'll come back to that. So, I have given the EC2 instance name and I have given the private key address, and it's asking me for the username. I'm going to type the username here. This is the default username for Linux Red Hat instances and also for Amazon Linux instances. So it is authenticating with my key and I am logged into my server now. If you can see, for example, uptime, you will see uptime is about 5 minutes that we have logged in. And remember, I gave it access for my S3 bucket. If you do like this, I should be, oh, what happened? Okay, yeah, this is Linux instance. Remember, I use Red Hat. The Amazon CLI is not installed. So I need to install the Amazon CLI. Let us install that, and in a short while we will see how to access my S3 bucket. Meanwhile, let me try to get the URL http colon even I don't remember the exact URL 169.254 / latest and metadata. What was it, guys? Latest user data. So you can see here the script that I gave it in the server while I'm starting the server has automatically appeared here. Let us go and see whether our web server is running. I'm going to find whether it is installed. Sometimes I find that not working. Okay, great, that instance is running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this URL, guys. If we put it in the browser, we should be able to see our web server running. I'm going to put it in our chat window. So let us see if it is working. We started our web server. We put an home page /index.html. Let us see if it is working. It's spinning. It is taking some time. Something might be wrong. Okay, what other wanted? I wanted to show you user data now. While it is spinning, let it keep spinning. It is taking some time, means usually something has gone wrong. Let me do a curl localhost. Okay, it is working locally. Okay, let us try to fix fix the web server problems later. Let us concentrate on why our what else we can do with our EC2 instance. So pip install AWS CLI. I need to be root. One second. Let me go to root. m-y install ey.
I think port need to open, I guess.
I'm sorry?
HTTP.
Is it working?
HTTP port, I guess we need to open.
Oh, right, the security group, yes. Okay, let me do the Python pip first. Okay, I think this is the command Python pip. Let me try it again. m-y install. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to install pip command so I can install AWS CLI and access my S3 bucket. That is also not the command. Anybody quickly install pip and CentOS. Alright, I need to install RPL packages, EPL packages. Anybody familiar with EPL packages? Okay, somebody smartly pointed out that I need to enable port 80 in my security group. If you remember, I have given access only to my port 22 access. So that is why I am not able to connect to my web server while it is working locally. So just let's quickly go to VPCs. So this is what typically what I'm trying to do now is troubleshooting an EC2 instance for which a web server is working, not working. So this sometimes happens in your office as well. Somebody comes and says, I installed this, I'm not working. Then like a smart person pointed out, somebody will say that port is not working, go and check it out. So let me copy paste the EPL packages. Meanwhile, where is the EPL installation? Please, how to enable EPL? Okay, security groups, security groups, security groups. Here it is. It is still spinning. I mean, oh, great. See, guys, again it put me in Oregon region. I'm in the wrong place totally. Just give me one moment. Okay, whoever followed it is great. Whoever did not follow, as a smart gentleman pointed out, we enabled the security group for port 80, and I just went ahead and refreshed our page, and you can see the page is pointing to the URL. If I remove this also, it should work, because the web server usually points to the index.html. I think that this link is already there in the chat window, so whoever wants to go ahead and access it and try it, go ahead and try it. Okay, I'm just going to install EPAL. Anybody, I mean, just ignore the next two steps that I'm going to do. This is not necessary for a normal course of action in troubleshooting. Awesome. It is still not allowing me to install. Where are the EPL packages? Red hat guys, anybody here? Where is the URL? I need to wget it. Awesome. I'm downloading the RPM and going to install it. And now, before that, cd/temp. Just ignore the next 3 or 4 steps. Okay, great. We are progressing now. If it works, we should be able to access our S3 buckets. Let us try Amazon S3 LS. Yeah, it is. What is in the folder? The bin path is not set. Where is the path? SLD slash. Where is the binary usually stored? This is the reason, remember guys, yesterday I didn't want to do all these things and I was showing the IAM role. I used Amazon Linux instance because they have installed this AWS CLI package and configured it for using it directly. I mean, I just need to find the path now for the AWS command. I'm going to use Amazon documentation itself for finding the path. I don't remember it by heart. Here you see install Python pip and everything is there. Let me try this. If pip will, I don't think so. Pip solves my problem. Usually it is in a different path. So unless I give the exact path, it doesn't work for me. I'm going to try my luck. I need the exact path. I don't want to spend your time and my time wasting all these things. Rather, I'm going to show you what I wanted to show you by starting another instance very quickly because that is faster than doing all this nonsense work. See how fast it is going to start an instance. I'm choosing an instance operating system and then this is a pre-default defined here. Going to configure the instance. I'm going to, this time let us do ACB. Now last time we did ACA, this time let us do ACB, enable and give this access. Isn't that what I did, Mahendra? RPM-QA grep-I AWS. That's what I thought I gave a capital R. I don't know whether it works or not. But oh, this I will show you short while. Let me not install anything now. Go to additional storage. Nothing. I don't want to add anything. Let me leave the tags for now. Let us go ahead and quickly do it. If you remember, port 80 by default should show here. If I choose this security group, you can see here port 80 is here. Review and launch and launch. I'm going to use my same key, the Mumbai demo key. If I click on this, it takes me back to the EC2 or console instances. If I remove that, if you have noticed it, at a pending state, you see the other instances already running and all the status checks are successful. This one is pending and it is coming online. Let us click on that. It is coming online. So remember the shutdown behavior I told you, this is running already. I am also connected here. So let us say uptime is now 18 minutes. Let us go back to the console. I'm going to select this server now. So just to be sure, the instance type is 0f832, 0f832. I've selected the correct one. I'm going to action instance state and I'm going to say reboot. And it is asking me confirmation for reboot. So I'm going to say click on reboot and it is saying something, I'm rebooting, and you can see the status did not change. The status checks also came back online. Let me go to my server now. You can see it is disconnected and I'm going to use R here in my terminal. That option is there. You will probably have to reconnect by giving the username and password again. It works. No, it doesn't work. Let me duplicate it. Did anything change? Of course, hostname change. Did it change? EC2 34, 154, 256. No, it is the same. Why I'm not able to connect? Oh, other instances also started running by now. It's not able to connect. I'm going to create a new session. Connect to it. Since I know all of you know that for this instance I'm using EC2 underscore user hyphen user as the username, and I'm going to mention my secret key, that is Mumbai. Did anything happen? Surprising, it is not connecting again. Okay, it took a while. I was surprised. Okay, let's go ahead and type uptime. It says 0 minutes. So you see from the console, we did not see any change in the status. But when you log into the server and try uptime, you can see that the server has restarted successfully and it has refreshed its cache and everything. So we will. I'll show you now about shutdown behavior now. So you have the other option like instance state, reboot and terminate. So if I click on terminate now, it will ask me option are you wanted, oh yeah, right. It will ask me whether I want to terminate it. If you have enabled termination protection, this option will be disabled by default. You can see that here as well, termination protection is false. So whether we can change the state, we can go to instance settings and you can see here shutdown behavior and change termination protection. So I'm going to click on this one and I'm going to say yes, enable termination protection. That means if I go here and go to instance state and click on terminate, it will say that it is protected. You cannot terminate this instance. These instances have termination protection and will not be terminated. Use the termination protection option to change it. In other words, you are creating one more step for somebody to terminate it accidentally. They need to manually go ahead and disable the protection and then go ahead and shut down. Quite often I have seen in my Linux world, Unix world experience that people accidentally reboot the wrong servers. People accidentally terminate the wrong VMs and create a production issues. And most of simply the option to recover it is go back and see whether the server is come back online. Unnecessary headache for everybody. Those kind of things can be avoided by using instant state termination protection. And likewise, you want to have shutdown behavior option. Remember the stop and terminate. So if I choose this terminate, if I try to stop that instance, it will terminate it directly. That is what this instance means. So that is the options. What else I wanted to show you here is, yeah, you can add a volume. Let us say you have one network card, you want to add another network card to the server. Like for example, the server is having only one private IP and one public IP. You want to have another corporate IP address. Then what you do is you go to instance settings, I'm sorry, go to network settings and click on attach another network interface. And it says that no network interfaces are available in the VPC. So that means that you go to your VPC and create your network interfaces here and come back to attach it there. So that is how you attach. When I'm talking about a VPC, I'll show you how to attach additional network cards there. This is what, one second, what else is I wanted to show you here in the demo. I'm just going to the PPT to see what else I wanted to show here. So we talked about choosing a region, operating system, instance types, choosing network, availability zone, user data, storage, and instance state. Yeah, the pending, stopped, and terminating. Let us go ahead and terminate one of our instances. First, we'll stop it. I'm going to click on stop. Remember, in this server, we have installed a web server, the configurations and all those things. I have stopped it. The server is not running. If I go ahead and refresh this page, it should not be visible now. I should be getting a page not be displayed after this stops spinning and the ping is failed. Chrome will show me that. But if I start this server again, the configuration will be available. That is what the difference you get between stopping and terminating. If I terminate it, everything is gone. Stopping temporarily freezes your billing and your configurations are protected in your EBS volumes. And how do I know that my instance has an EBS volume? If I come down, I have selected this instance. If I come down, you can see my root device type is EBS, and it is also showing me whether my EBS type is optimized or not. You can also go to network interfaces and attach another interface here, but it would be a little complicated to learn that right now. Let us do that when we are doing the VPC classes, when you are talking about in detail in networking. So it is stopping. Okay, if you saw the status change from stopping, it will change to stopped anytime. This one, yeah. So it is in stopped state now. So remember, I wanted to show you the EC2 S3 access for this server. So let us go ahead and connect to this guy. And the advantage of using Amazon Linux is some of these basic things they have predefined and pre-configured to make it easy life for most of us. Okay, my mobile XM is complaining that I have used too much. So you know very well that I have stopped it and I have got myself disconnected from this session here. So obviously we are connected to the only remaining instance, and let me try to go to sudo. It will ask me to choose a region if I'm not wrong if I do this. It is taking some time, so that means it is working. Remember the same thing we did yesterday also. I don't want to spend much time here. Same nonsense. You do this, you choose the bucket and then go blah blah blah. I think I made a mistake in the command. S3 ls I should have given. See, it is asking me to choose the bucket region. So that is when it will work. If I want to list the objects in my bucket. So I'm going to give this empty AP south 1. Empty. Go back, run the previous command, and voila, it works. So that is how you give instance to instance call. Yeah, okay, Ganesh, no problems. I am also done here. One more thing I wanted to show was elastic IPs for the day. So remember, if you have a private IP address, that is the last thing I wanted to show anyway. So let us create one more server now. Okay, I can do this also. See this guys, okay, what we do is we quickly see this IP address that is assigned to the server 52.66.99 19.169. I want to assign one more public IP address or a different one which is permanent or persistent. Elastic IPs are persistent. They sit in your account, associated to your account, and you can associate it with any instance, or it is like you have a IP address for yourself associated to your account. You can assign it to any server and remove it. It is, think of it as a static IP address. It doesn't change. So how do you do that is go to Elastic IPs, associate a new address, and it is asking me to allocate. Yes, I'm going to allocate. Okay, this is my new IP. If you remember, my server was running on a different IP. I'm going to see if I can show it to you in another console. Let us close all these unnecessary ones. My EC2 console is loading here. As of now, I have allocated myself and public IP address 34.154.233, and I have one running instance, and that running instance is having a 52 series IP. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allocate my 35 series IP address to my server. Now I'm going to say click on actions, associate address, and it is going to list me all the instances. So this is my stopped instance, this is my running instance. I'm going to allocate my static IP address here. So it is asking me, do I want to give any other private IP address? I'm just going to leave it empty. You don't have to do anything here. So leave everything as it is. If you associate your current public IP address with the released, what they are saying is currently I have 52 series. This will be gone if I'm going to allocate my 30 series. I'm going to say yes, go ahead and do that. And if I go to my server and I'm going to refresh my console here, keep a note here, it is 52. It should have changed to something like the 30 series now. As you can see, it is in the 30 series now. Let us go ahead and try to associate with this stopped instance. We can do that as well. I'm going to disassociate now because we are running a web server. I'm going to give you the IP address so that you can reach the web server through the public IP address. Associate to this. That is how simple you can do an IP assignment in Amazon. In a conventional terms, you go to network configuration, put your IP address, put your subnet mask, and all those things you need to do. Here you just choose the instance type, and automatically most of the rest of the activities is taken care. So I'm going to close it here. I'm going to start my instance now, and you should see my public IP address happening, coming alive here. Go to instance, click on start. And you can see this instance status running, pending, and after all the checks are completed, it will go to a running state. And if you have noticed it, my IP address, that is the public IP address, is already associated with my server. So if I copy paste this to the browser, I clicked on it. Once it comes online, my web server should be accessible through this. Okay, it is already available. As you can see, the web server is sharing the data here. If anybody wants to try it, go ahead and help yourself. So this is how you have a public IP address or a static IP address associated to a server. Because whenever you reboot your server or terminate your server, your IP address or your domain name changes in Amazon. If you do a start and not reboot, I'm sorry, when you do a stop, your IP address and your hostname changes. When you terminate, obviously you are going to start a new instance. So if you have applications running and you don't want to give new IP addresses to your customers, that is when you use an Elastic IP. So they can always know that your applications are available in this IP address. Whether you reboot them, terminate them, start them, they will always see one IP address. That is why Amazon calls it Elastic IPs. And one final bit of information I want to share is, if you have an Elastic IP in your account which is not associated with any server, then you are charged for it. But if it is associated with any running server, then you are not charged any cost for it. So experiment with Elastic IP, but do not forget to release it when you are not using it. You will be charged for that. So that is the most of the things that I wanted to share. We talked about retrieving metadata, user data. We used user data for running a web server. And we talked about changing the termination behavior. So tomorrow's class, we will talk about how to create our own machine image. We have started our web server, it is running. Let us talk about creating a machine image with this instance so that we can distribute it to anybody who wants to have the same configuration. That's it from me. Madhuri, probably tomorrow I can spend some time configuring a putty for you and showing you how to connect to a Windows instance, so that you can also try some servers. And who is the other person who is basically Windows? Is it Sujan yourself or Anand yourself?
No, I'm from Excel Solaris.
Oh, right. You are Solaris guy, XFS. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. I forgot the names a little bit. Anand, is that yourself basically Windows? Oh, great. Then Anand, you are familiar with using a putty and connecting to a server? Okay, awesome then. This is how basically we start our instances. And another interesting thing, if you wanted to see, on your left hand side of your console, you have limits. By default, I think everybody is given about 5 instances or 20 instances. And I don't spend time trying to memorize these guys. I wouldn't suggest you also should do that. For example, I clicked on instance limits. If you can see my screen, it shows the current limit as 20. And any new account starts with this limit, and if you want to start with 20,000, 30,000, then you go ahead, click on it, and Amazon will ask you questions like why you want so many, what is your business, do you really want to run a legitimate business, then they will increase it. They do that because people sometimes use these instances for sending spam emails and botnets, which is running phishing scams. So they have this strict limits. Only when you explain your business case, they will increase the limits. And for example, if you see my account, it is not even allowing me to start an X1 instance because this is quite costly, and quite often what happens is people start it and they say that they accidentally started it, please don't bill me for that. So Amazon by default says don't start X1 instances by giving 0 instances for me. That's all for today's class. EC2 has still a couple of a few interesting topics. Yeah. Placement groups and auto scaling groups. We will talk about it in the coming classes. So that's it from me for today. Anybody having any questions, I would really like to have some now. I'm done talking.